All right. Hello, gents, for another episode of DCA. There's only three of us today. Unfortunately, Marty is out. I know he would have loved to talk about the election and what's been going on, but it's going to be the old crew for this week. And good to see you guys all again. It's been an eventful week. We did kind of touch very close to all-time high. I think we got within $175 of all-time high, and then there was some polling data over the weekend and everyone got a little bit scared, and Bitcoin then went all the way back down to like 67K and is now holding up around 68.5. How are you guys feeling? How's the feeling on the ground there, James, in the US?
Yeah, so there was a lot of mixed reactions over the weekend because polling data was haywire for about 2 days, and that confused a lot of people. And I think we'll get into kind of the impact. But some things money is flowing in, some things people are in a holding pattern, particularly crypto, particularly altcoins. I think Bitcoin will be fine regardless, but we'll get into all that as well. But I don't know, people knocking on doors, people putting things on doors, people trying to get the vote out, which I think is very important. So yeah, all good here.
Yeah, it does feel like there's only the two main, well, the main swing state seems to be Pennsylvania, which is what everyone's kind of focused on. And I guess we may, I mean, with elections, sometimes if it's like a clean sweep, you'll hear about it on the day, but normally it's the day after, isn't it, that the AP call it? But, you know, could be even longer with this one. Depends what happens. So I would at least expect volatility for the next 24 hours. Sorry, at least 48 hours and maybe even longer after that. CTO, how are you doing? Maybe we should bring up the Bitcoin chart because I think it's probably a very interesting thing to look at here after it got rejected from that level.
Yeah, let's do that. Of course, it's very, very exciting times now after we've had like 6 months of nothing has happened. Now it's happening, guys. So it's obviously very exciting. And unfortunately, this is a rejection. We went up to resistance, we crossed it, we hit all-time high, and then this is a solid rejection for now. And we kind of didn't really hold the next key level either here at 69K. Now we're below that rejection wake up. And I think what's interesting here is that at least up until earlier today, the Bitcoin price chart is the same chart as this chart, like the Trump rating probability of winning. The only difference now is actually today, that this one has spiked back up while Bitcoin hasn't. Otherwise, one of our community members calculated the correlation is almost 100%. It's like over 0.7 correlation, positive correlation. And I think another interesting thing is how different these are. The different polling sites here is New York Times, Harris 49%. Here's another one. Economist has Harris in the lead. This site 270 to win. I don't know how reliable it is. That's Democrats 226, Republicans 219, and then we have the Polymarket and Kalshi looking like this. And I'm actually not sure which of these are the most reliable, but given the correlation, understanding this for the next 48 hours is of course incredibly important. One weakness that I can even I can understand is that this is number of people, isn't it? While the election doesn't work like that. It's different states. It's not the popular vote that matters. While I think that these ones are simply taking the amount of people, but I'm not entirely sure.
The betting markets are basically driven by whales that are making big bets. So Kalshi, Polymarket. So there's apparently a big whale not too far from Amanda, where you are in France, and he is controlling like 30% of the bet here. And so when you look at this, that's the probability of winning, and you just deploy your capital if you want to play with that. But that's only for people outside the US, of course, unless they're using a VPN. And then the other thing that's most important is basically, there are some media outlets that are, I think 83% or 93% of media outlets are left leaning. So they'll typically do polls calling on their friends. So when you see things like The Economist and New York Times, I wouldn't trust them very much. But I'd look more towards the smaller, more accurate pollers, folks like Rasmussen and stuff like that. They're much more interesting. But either way, we don't know because there's voting machines as well that are throwing glitches right now across many states. But as Manda said at the beginning, the most important thing is for there to be an overwhelming win one side or the other. If it's really, really tight, then it'll just be lawsuits and cases and fighting, and the markets will be rattled and unsettled. And I just hope it's
because I try to start. I'm sure you have also, looking at history, it's almost been regardless of who wins, the market kind of takes a sigh of relief and pumps after the election. I think the worst case here is if it's kind of undecided, like the losing side doesn't accept the result, and there's talks of rigged elections and things like that, and then there's like weeks or months of confusion and uncertainty. That's probably the worst case outcome. I think a clear victory of either side is probably better, but looking at the correlation, this so far has been positively correlated to Trump's prediction rating. Then if we don't get the breakout now for whatever reason, of course, that doesn't mean that it can never happen. Perhaps we will just consolidate longer below the resistance and then break out later. That's not a bad scenario. If that happens, that could be even better in the end. But the breakout this time didn't happen. That's the conclusion.
Yeah, so just going back to what you said, so Polymarket also has odds on what day the Associated Press will call the election. 20% chance it will be called tomorrow. 48% chance it will be called on Wednesday, and then roughly about 25% all the other days after that, maybe even more actually, close to 30%. So pretty it could be a very big range of outcomes here. Like we just said, it's there's no perfect way to look at this data. Like you said, that's the holy grail to kind of know what's going to happen here. It feels as though the polling data, Nate Silver, who's a very, very well known pollster, came out and said the polls this election have been the worst that he's ever seen. He said he only really trusts the New York Times poll, but he says it's been really, really bad, the quality of the polling, and I would consider him kind of an independent voice in all of this. Then you have Polymarket, as what we've said, and Kalshi. Polymarket has more volume than Kalshi, but obviously it's people outside the US, and there's huge questions about whales coming in and doing things there, or maybe even foreign entities, which is interesting. So that's maybe not perfect. It was interesting that the Polymarket CEO was actually spotted at a Tim Waltz fundraiser over the weekend. So there had been claims, that website had been right-leaning, and then to see that, I think, definitely turned some eyes. So you have odds, and then you have polls, and none of them are kind of perfect. I guess the reason why we're talking about so much is kind of what you said, CTO. The correlation between Bitcoin and this has been so high. There were a few different takes. Maybe we should get into kind of the agenda now here, James. I know you created the agenda for us, but we kind of just went over the Bitcoin technical analysis. Then we're going to do retailers not arrived, impact of the final election predictions, Saylor's 42 billion Bitcoin plan, altcoin market cap at cycle lows, Sol versus SUI, what we're going to be expecting with the rate calls later this week, Tether versus Coinbase earnings, and then some stuff about meme coins and some macro stuff. But yeah, going into again, just focusing on the election there a little bit. There I saw three different takes over the weekend. One of them was from Bernstein that came out and said Bitcoin could go to 50K if Kamala gets in, or it could go to 80 to 90K if Trump gets in. That being said, in the same breath, they think it goes to 200K by the end of 2025, so they don't really mind. Then you had the Bitcoin option volatility pricing at a 10% move either way, so more like a 62 versus 75 sort of move on the election. And then you had Kobe, who's quite a well-known voice in crypto, coming out and saying it doesn't matter, we're going above 100K either way. It's just the journey about getting there. What do you guys agree with there? Do you feel like it's just a bit of a nothing burger that Bitcoin's going higher in all scenarios?
I think it'll go higher faster under one scenario, and it'll go higher eventually, slower under the other scenario. That's pretty clear. But if you're talking altcoins, they're going to get hammered under one scenario. That's why they're at all-time lows right now, because of the uncertainty. And under another, like if you imagine the departure of Gary Gensler, that will be very good for altcoins. It could even kick off an alt season. And we'll get into the alts as well in a few minutes, I think. But that's kind of the quick way I see it. I actually did a poll last night. I've been interested in doing this poll for the longest time. And I said, you know what? Hell, I'm going to do it. I basically reached out to everybody on Twitter and I said, Bitcoiners, we want to know which political figure do you vibe with the most? And I had the candidates and all the options. And it ended up being 8% Kamala, 92% Trump. So Bitcoiners are overwhelmingly Trump. But at the same time, I recognize it's an echo chamber. People that follow me like Bitcoin. So maybe there's some parallel there. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And there was 7,000 votes, which is pretty substantial. Statistically, you need to have N over 1,000 for it to be valid. But it was 7,000 votes.
Wow.
But like, what did you think of that? I was expecting something more like 50-50. But it's overwhelming on one side, at least from a Bitcoiner perspective.
Yeah, look, I actually think for Bitcoin, this election matters the least potentially, just because I think in most of those scenarios, let's say the Dems win, then you probably have a continuation of the current situation, which probably puts Bitcoin front and center with having regulatory clarity and being onboarded. If Trump gets in, then I think you have you have a case here for altcoins. Altcoins coming in and taking a bit more of a lion's share of the market cap. I think Bitcoin dominance may top on election day. Like, I do think that there's a case here that it's gone up to 61%, which is what we said. If Trump gets in, I think that people might look at a lot of different altcoins, and crypto returns to being more at the bleeding edge of tech a bit more, and you start to see a bunch of these utility coins starting to attract attention rather than just memes and Bitcoin. So I get the feeling that it's more broadly crypto that could be hurt by this rather than Bitcoiners.
It's so funny you say that, because if you do look at the alt chart, it is clearly bottomed. So you might as well jump to that right now. This is the altcoin market cap at cycle lows. And, the dominance is at cycle highs. It's gone way higher than expected. So you're dead right. I was thinking the same thing. This is from Titan of Crypto. And I'm sure, CTO, you probably have some good, alt market, what is it? Crypto market cap, less stable coins, less Bitcoin, and see how that chart looks. But it's been pretty bad out there for altcoins. Now, that being said, some are holding up very well. Like, the winning names are not far from all-time highs, but many of the old altcoins, remember, when you paint with a broad brush, everything is included in that bag, and there's so much garbage out there. Like, literally 98.5%, 99.5% of stuff is complete garbage, and that all goes into the alt market. But I do believe this is quite telling, and depending on who wins the election, this could trigger, exactly like you said, the Bitcoin dominance top and the alt season bottom, and then both will mean revert to each other.
Yeah, it's important to remember. I mean, I think many people see Gary Gensler as like the arch enemy of the industry and so on, but we have to remember he actually voted yes for the Bitcoin ETF. Whatever the reasons and whatever was behind, Bitcoin is kind of in. And that's not going to change regardless, I think.
Yep.
So I agree 100%. It's all the other projects. That's what's in question. And then, I mean, the counter argument here, because of course, same like you, discussed this a lot. And the counter argument is that, yeah, but Donald Trump, he talks a lot. Who knows if he will execute on any of that? That's the counter argument. But my take on that is that the projects and the industry doesn't really need anything from the politicians except not trying to destroy it. like that's the only thing the industry needs. And unfortunately, during the past couple of years, the industry hasn't gotten that. There has been a very aggressive attempt to destroy everything except Bitcoin, with all the litigation of all the projects, and it's still ongoing. What it was like a couple of days ago, Immutable got this Wells notice and so on. So it's still going on until the last day before the election, basically, trying to shut down projects for different reasons and with a lot of lawsuits. So I think that's really what we see here is the Bitcoin dominance. And it's easy to understand that it's been like this during the past period. Bitcoin has been safe. It has gotten adopted by all the major financial players. The SEC is okay with Bitcoin. Everyone's okay with Bitcoin. But all other projects is in question. And I mean, of course, we have this total market cap excluding BTC. But, you know, nothing saying this can't go lower. So I understand what he means. There's like a support resistance here, perhaps from these touch points and so on. But, you know, I think policy matters here. And the question is this only relevant short term? Because short term it is. Who wins in 2 days, what the predictions will show tomorrow and so on. It does matter for the market. But does it matter long term? And yeah, I think exactly like you said, James. I think it matters at least for the takeoff rate.
Yes.
For everything else, like other projects. If there is like the maybe most powerful nation in the world has key players trying to shut it down. Or we have a president in the United States that literally launched an ICO 2 weeks ago. That for everyone else was banned in 2018. He launched an ICO. So, of course, that's going to matter for what is permissible and what is not. Of course, like actual scams, actual crimes will always be prohibited. But all these corner cases where no one really has had clarity, and there's been so many questions with Gary Gensler and in hearings, like, please give clarity. Is this a security or not? And never got any answers. So perhaps if that gets resolved, I think that would speed up adoption of a lot of these projects.
And there's also the Elizabeth Warren anti-crypto army. They're very public for years and years to destroy crypto. Janet Yellen was out last week saying they need to kill stable coins and central bank digital currencies need to be in place. Otherwise, it's a threat to the dollar. But before we get on to kind of altcoins and the rest of the market, there are some very good tailwinds that Mando mentioned. This one just popped in this morning. Mando, I'm sure you saw this. State of Michigan pension fund just reported 7 million in Bitcoin ETF. Pension funds are here, and that's after, is it Wisconsin bought? Florida are looking at it now hard, and they're probably going to do it. And then once you get to 2 or 3 of these big state pension funds, like CalPERS, I think, which is the California pension fund, is the 4th or 3rd biggest pension fund on the planet after Japan. So these things are big.
They're huge. Yeah, I think I kind of agree with what you said there, CTO. They just need to get out of the way. And it's unclear, even if Kamala gets in, if they will get out of the way. She's made some indications that she wants crypto to be at the forefront still of American policy, even though it's been shunned. I don't know if she's going to be as restrictive as what we've seen over the last 4 years. You just don't know. But it does feel as though some institutions are just are grabbing it by both hands already. And whether it's happening in the US or not, they're kind of doing it outside. UBS, which is one of the biggest banks in the whole world, tokenized a fund last week. You saw 3 or 4 different, Franklin Templeton tokenized a fund as well. These have both happened on ETH, interestingly, that whole like base narrative of tokenization on base. But and then you've seen things like Singapore make overtures towards tokenization even today. You saw Tether make a Dirham stablecoin. Like, this adoption is happening, whether the US is there or not. But it would be great if they kind of got out of crypto's way a little bit. And we'll kind of wait to see what happens, whoever gets in, because if they get out of the way, I think crypto can really, really shine in the US.
Exactly. And it's not just the US too.
Yeah.
CTO, you saw this one too, Deutsche Telekom.
Oh yeah, one of my old customers. Very happy to see this. And I mean, Deutsche Telekom is they're very large in Europe, and it was interesting because they're maybe not known for being the most radical company. They're kind of playing it safe type of company, and while technology, advanced technologically, and I'm just reading the news. I don't have any other insights, but their reasoning was that there is excess energy. And I feel that if Deutsche Telekom says that, some politicians in Europe will actually listen, because I tried to kind of get this message out some years ago that there's a huge misunderstanding. People think that electricity is like globally distributed or something like that, but it doesn't work like that. If you have a lot of electricity in one physical location, it's not that you can just use that in some other part of the world at that time. You can't. It's expensive to transport electricity in different places at different times and store it and use it at another point of the day or another point of the year. So you cannot just sum up all the kilowatt hours or gigawatt hours or terawatt hours and divide by the consumption and then think that, crypto mining is stealing from that. The whole idea here is that they're using the excess energy when it would otherwise be wasted. And that is, that's the whole idea that James, you talked so much about also, that by utilizing that energy, the energy generation can actually be more profitable and it can help in that. But this is a very difficult thing to understand, and I would love that Deutsche Telekom comes out and explains this in Europe. So I felt that it's like a small news, but it could turn out important.
But I think what's hidden here is it's been confirmed, at least to my knowledge, at least 7 major countries are mining Bitcoin with government resources. El Salvador, Bhutan, they got lots of free energy. Argentina, Dubai, Ethiopia, and of course Russia, China, and who else? So there's a lot of stuff. Like the people that are playing this game, the nation states that are mining, let's call it mining on the sly, they know they have to do it quietly, because if they tell the world they're mining Bitcoin, game theory will kick in, and they want to be able to stack as much as possible as quickly as they can. And these folks that are mining, they're competing against, say, US public miners that are paying 5 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. If you're close to a waterfall or something, you've got free electricity. You just got to buy the rigs. And again, funded by the government. So this is really, really exciting for me regarding what's going on with Bitcoin mining and what nation states are doing, not just the pension funds, but also nation states. And then we have the crazy treasuries. But there is some group that's a little bit left out. Mando?
Yeah, you put this like retail is not right. That's very, very true. Like everyone who's been in crypto this whole time has told you that this cycle has not felt like other cycles. Like your friends and your families are not asking you about coins as much this time. It's even though Bitcoin's at all-time high, I heard about it a lot more when it was at all-time high last time, and even the cycle before. Like now it's just kind of in a bit of the rear view. I think partly that's because a lot of assets have been hitting all-time high at the same time. Like you've had stocks hit all-time high, you've had gold hit all-time high. So Bitcoin being there kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's definitely in terms of global search, interest in it, it's become less of a big deal. I think part of that is what we have spoken about, like the fact that crypto's use cases have been kind of narrowed down more to store of value in Bitcoin, payments, and then let's say speculation on meme coins. It feels like are the 3 strongest ones right now. Payments is less glamorous, and Bitcoin kind of everyone's kind of heard about. So it's only really the main onboarding this cycle that I've seen at least has been via meme coins, which isn't for everyone. Like it's kind of just speculation gambling. So people haven't been drawn to it like they were in the last 2 cycles, but people felt like it was, again, at the bleeding edge of tech. Even though, the payment stuff I think is super interesting, it just doesn't really, I don't think, excite people into the space as much. What we were talking about last show, though, I think is kind of interesting here. But like maybe you don't need them. Like we could be in a situation here where you're talking about, hundreds of millions of users of these chains, even if they're not necessarily humans, or know that they are interfacing with crypto. So, and I think that's kind of okay, in my opinion. Like you're not going to have every single person that you ever meet with a trading around on a crypto wallet, but they may start to realize that a lot of the stuff they're doing in the payments is related to that, or other things like swaps and that sort of stuff, or trading around of even stocks, which gets tokenized. So they're not here. I'm less worried about it.
I have one theory that is, I haven't said before, why perhaps retail is less interested this cycle than the previous cycles. During the previous cycles, retail could get in on new projects almost at the beginning. It was difficult, but it was possible. You could buy whatever, BNB or Ethereum or something almost immediately after it was launched. And if we go back to like the ICO I joked about before, that was literally that. Most of it was scams, but a few projects were real and they went up 100x, 1000x. In this cycle, because of the regulation, the increased regulatory pressure, almost all the projects closed the sales for retail. Now you have to be like an accredited investor, a VC, you do private deals with a few VC companies instead. And then those VC companies extract almost all the value. And then when it's a public sale, that's like the IPO. Now they've replicated like the IPO model, which an IPO is basically the founders and VCs are dumping on the public. Now it's the same with many projects. The VCs extract 100x and then they dump on the public and the coin goes down 50% and kind of leverage hangs around there. The only exception is the meme coins. So I think that, but meme coins doesn't appeal to everyone. Many people, they do want to analyze the technology, do some fundamental analysis, have some opinion about the team and those kind of things, which appeals to many people. And that has been much harder this cycle for the simple reason that the sales were close to the retail until much later when the value was already extracted. The projects launch on like hundreds of millions of billion valuation instead of launching at $2 million, something like that. So I feel that could be one reason, and let's hope that the cycle comes around. I personally, I liked the fairness and so on of the previous model where there was a lot of junk, but if you had, your brains with you, you could perhaps find something interesting. And we haven't seen that. So I hope that comes back. If we get a more liberal, or I don't know what's the term, a more open regulation, perhaps it will come back. Otherwise, it is the meme coins then that is left for retail to come in early.
I've got three theories on this why the Bitcoin is near all-time low for retail investment based on Google search. Retail's out, but a couple of theories. One is obviously we've hit 69K for the 420th time. It's been very stable, so people can lose interest. Second of all, when a retail investor looks at an asset that's 69,000, it's like looking at a Warren Buffett stock. It's just unaffordable. And it's not going to do 100x that they see all these 100x thumbnails out there for meme stocks. So maybe they're not interested in that. I'd like your take on that after, Mando. Second, ETFs now exist. A lot of people might be using that as a vehicle to get on. BlackRock had a study where 80% of all new ETF investors into the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF were brand new to ETFs, which is kind of interesting. And third is you have the AI revolution happening. Maybe people are more inclined to invest in NVIDIA or something else, or MicroStrategy as a proxy, and have MicroStrategy buy the Bitcoin. They're my 3 or 4 different theories. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would touch upon what CTO said at the start. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's an issue with how people can get into projects and also what these projects can do. So for both of those, it's become more restrictive. The SEC's come down on a bunch of different projects for being more business-like, and come down previously on how to sell these sort of tokens. So really, the only real token that can be created is a token which is launched on a fair launch, let's say, out of one of these meme coin protocols with no utility attached to it, no value attached to it. So you end up just having like gambling tokens being produced. That is a direct result of the lack of policy that's happened in the US. That's why I said earlier in the show, like there is a chance here that we do see Bitcoin dominance top going after this election. If that changes, then you could have a change in how these projects are sold. As you said, Trump's family basically did a token sale last week, and you could have broader regulation changes on what could be accepted for projects to do. So I think that could be a big thing. I do think AI has taken some of the shine away, though. Like what you said, James, there's nothing. This is what I was speaking about last week. I think there was a bit of a brain drain in that sort of world of projects not of projects not being able to do what you would like them to do. It was kind of wild to see AI kind of spring up, and it had so much freedom. That being said, if we now sort of see this intersection of crypto and AI again, then I think a lot of them will come back, and I do think we could bring back a lot of interest that way, which I think a lot of people are excited for. And then finally, yeah, I do think that it's been easy to invest in the ETF. You know, part of the reason why we've seen Bitcoin active holders has gone down is probably because it's become progressively easier for people to like not really use crypto infrastructure to actually buy crypto now. So they probably feel less close to the situation, and they're probably less close to what's been going on. Like they're just buying it for their 401ks or their pension funds, and they're chilling. So I think you've hit all three of those. I would agree with James.
Good. We'll see.
We should touch upon MicroStrategy though, because that was also one of the biggest stories of the week. Michael Saylor, the Bitcoin god himself, has decided that he wants to buy another $42 billion worth of Bitcoin. This is the same value as the market cap of MicroStrategy right now. 42 billion would put him as one of the biggest borrowers in US corporate debt. It would be a massive buy. He's been buying it so far using mainly convertibles, which are like debt equity sort of instruments. They act like debt if things go wrong, but they act like equity if things go right. He's been buying it with very low interest rates. I'm sure you looked at this, James, but this is 42 billion is not small.
No, it's massive. I was interested in what that means on a per day basis. I calculated the average buy per day, etc. But the simple way to look at it is they'll be buying somewhere between 350,000 Bitcoin and 600,000, depending on price and the timing of their buys. Also, half of the 42 billion will be equity issuance, and I calculated it'll be about 18.6% dilution. So it's not catastrophic for the stock by no means when you look at Bitcoin miners. The other half, the other 21 billion, will be that convertible debt, which is a great option for people that want safety, and at the same time they want Bitcoin exposure, and they're willing to give over money for a very low rate. And remember, only 450,000 Bitcoin will be mined over the next 3 years, and he'll be buying somewhere between 350 and 600. So just the most important thing is Saylor alone can sustain the bid for Bitcoin for the next 3 years if he can pull off this ATM. And that is kind of bonkers. And I did have a couple of different scenarios, bear, bull, etc. This is kind of the amount of Bitcoin held. So they could get to 600,000 conservatively with this stacking strategy over the next couple of years. Remember, they bought every single quarter, and then the price projections for the stock are insane, absolutely insane. Because if you just look at, like we talked about, you got nation states mining, you got Deutsche Telekom looking at Bitcoin mining, you got pension funds beginning to stack. I mean, we're going to run out of supply. I've never been more convinced of a supply crunch ever right now, because it is just so scarce, and that for me is very exciting. So this also I think got the attention. So Saylor is a very clever guy. He's been on the channel a couple of times. Super smart, never fades Saylor, but he knows this is all about game theory. He who moves first wins. It's that simple. Now everybody's trying to catch up. We have new treasuries, press releases. Yeah, a lot of companies up in Canada right now stacking Bitcoin, borrowing to buy Bitcoin, and even other tokens like Solana, etc. So it is absolutely, game theory is going to go into high gear in 2025.
One super interesting. Imagine if there comes a second person now, like Saylor. It becomes self-fulfilling. Like the volumes are so big and the supply is so low, so it becomes self-fulfilling. Like if you get 2 companies or say 3 companies doing the same, of course price is going to go up. So of course it's going to be successful. And I'm kind of surprised that no one really has come out with that yet. Like it's self-fulfilling. It can't really fail if there are more people than Saylor doing the same thing. As you said, James, he can almost sustain it himself. Imagine then if there's 2 people or 3 of these guys.
Yeah, and then we have, I'm trying to pull up the site right now as well. Microsoft have it on their ballot as well. Another vote, believe it or not. You know, should they stack Bitcoin? Of course, the board is advising don't do it. But then you look at companies like Apple. Apple have spent in the last 8 or 9 months $100 billion on buying their stock back because they don't know what to do with their cash. So they're buying their stock back to inflate the stock price. Imagine if Apple had the foresight to drop $100 billion on Bitcoin in January of this year. Okay? They would have tripled their money. So anyway, it's just the others, CTO, they're going to come, but they don't have the courage because it's still very much an unknown, very risky magic internet money type concept to them. So
exactly, but that's my point. Not that much courage is needed because it's going to work. If there's a second person saying, I'm also going to raise another 42 billion, I'm also going to go and buy Bitcoin, then comes a third person says the same. So they're going to buy, 120 billion worth of Bitcoin. Of course, price is going to go up. So of course, the strategy will be successful. And I'm a little bit surprised no one has figured that out yet. So, but probably someone will at some point.
Right? MetaPlanet, I think in Asia has been trying. It's like it's progressive, right? The only way you can really do this is a company does it, then it goes up, then it's able to borrow more money, then it goes up. It's like a progressive thing. I saw some kind of mixed takes actually on this, though. Do you not think Saylor now becomes one of the biggest? Well, at least MicroStrategy becomes a big risk for the crypto market here. Like he is buying this on leverage. He will have a liquidation price at some stage. He's going to be buying it on the way up. Like it's not, although he's got some very low entries so far. If he's going to buy another 42 billion, and he buys it, let's say even right now, he's going to have a liquidation price, which is going to be a target. In my opinion, like I do think that this
actually
debt
no,
buying.
Well, the beauty of the convertibles, it's a 3 or 4 year commitment, so there's no liquidation on those, and that's why he's very, very focused on balance sheet risk, and he's not going to expose himself there. He's also very focused on not diluting himself out of power. So he again, his head is very well screwed on. I'm not concerned about that at all. And
yeah, I mean. The 2 ways a company can default is by missing an interest payment or missing a maturity deadline. So ideally, he's able to borrow at a long date, and I know the interest is like unbelievably low. So I can always hope that he can pay that off. But I don't know. When someone comes in and says they're going to buy $42 billion of Bitcoin on leverage, like if a friend told you they were going to do that, what would you say? Maybe be a bit careful, you could lose it all here, there's no doubt in my mind that there's some risk attached to this now. He becomes like a Tether-like entity in my opinion, one of these too big to fail.
Well, I remember he was last on the channel, and I said to him, there'll never be more than 14 million Bitcoin because so many are lost. I said, are you trying to get to 1% of the Bitcoin stack, i.e. 140,000 Bitcoin? And he smiled at me without saying anything. Now he's 225,000 Bitcoin, and he could be adding another, say, 300. So it'd be over 500,000 Bitcoin. And when you calculate the math of that, that's 3% of everything. But also, if you look at the rate at which BlackRock is stacking, that is more of a risk, in my opinion, Mando, because they're stacking at a vertical rate like this. They now have a massive bag. But again, the other thing that does have me concerned, though, which is itching at the back of my little brain, is Metcalfe's law. So if all of these Bitcoin go into these treasuries or these ETFs, it defeats the purpose of what Bitcoin is. It's a currency for payments, the original mission 15 years ago. I'm interested in what you guys think of that. When all the Bitcoin is stacked and stored away, not utilized, there won't be that many people using it as well. CTO?
I think
Mando?
that is one of the I genuinely do think that we've created an economic system here, which I think is reactionary to the boomers economy, where like everyone made money on real estate. There's a good line, which is it's people always like defend the economic system that makes them rich. Like I think we'll probably hear for decades of people defending Bitcoin, but there then becomes a point maybe in 30 years or something where people go, yeah, we're just going to create a new one. You know, you see it every single year or every single week in crypto, right? There's always a new chain, new something. At some stage, like the people who are made wealthy from the current financial system, you know, the new people will just reject that and try and create their own.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I agree 100% on that. So there is a risk. But from Saylor's perspective, he can never start selling. You know, sell to whom? It's actually Peter Schiff made a good joke. You should check it on Twitter. But so Saylor can never sell this. That would make it impossible. Say that he comes close. Say that scenario that Mando you showed here plays out. He does in fact buy on the parabola up. He starts taking bigger risk, and he actually has a liquidation price that could happen. He comes closer to that. He's thinking, no problem. I can just sell a little bit to cover and so on. No, he cannot. I mean, sell to whom? Who would he sell to? So in that situation, because if there would be a signal value in that. And, perhaps at some point in the future, it kind of gets a little bit irrelevant. All these Bitcoins are locked away and everyone in the new generation is using a newer, better protocol. And it feels like the boomer coin Bitcoin is kind of irrelevant. So, I mean, of course, these kinds of things do tend to happen in technologies. I think it can happen, but exactly. I don't see it happening now. It's kind of the opposite. Bitcoin is the only coin that is kind of approved all the way, and it still has a lot of momentum. We feel that it's kind of getting old because we spend so much time in it. But for most people in society, it's still completely new. They still haven't understood what it is.
So maybe let's touch upon, we did say that we might like altcoins at this exact juncture. I think the two main ones we've been looking at, if you even call them altcoins, would be Sol and SUI. CTO, do you maybe want to bring up the charts for both of those just to see how they're looking going into this? I think both of those gave up a little bit of gains. Do we want
to wrap up, though, while we're on this topic? Because a lot of people are very concerned about the next 48 hours. What are your plans, post-election predictions?
I think my gut tells me that Trump will win, and that you'll see this 75 to 80K rally. I think we'll break through all-time highs, and I do think that given we've literally hit that level and been rejected a dozen times, I think it would be a big deal, and I do think maybe even you buy into that momentum, that breakout. That's my gut. That being said, like, these are volatile markets. You can probably sell an up move over the next 24 hours and buy a down move. I said a few times I think we're going to cross back and forth 70K a few times over the next 24, 48 hours. So just hold on. You probably will do better be doing absolutely nothing if you're long.
Yep. Interesting. CTO, what's your game plan?
Yeah, I have so much exposure already. I don't need more exposure. But if we do break out, if there's like a solid breakout, Trump wins. Yeah, I think all those things we talked about, they kind of get confirmation then. It would be very positive for the crypto market. It's not a political statement in this. If I could, choose two candidates out of the 330 million amazing people, I probably wouldn't have chosen either of them. So I'm not, there's no need to rage comment here, guys. I'm just analyzing the likely market impact. And I think if Trump wins, I think Bitcoin will shoot up. And more importantly, it will be the turning point for the altcoins, which have been out in the garden shed now, trying to survive the winter. And that, I think, would turn around. So it could definitely be the time to really start looking at altcoins if Trump wins. If Kamala wins, perhaps market takes a sigh of relief. I think if it gets inconclusive and there are riots or whatever happens, the losing side doesn't accept the result, and we go into weeks or months of uncertainty, that I think would be very bad for the market. That's maybe the scenario where I would try to de-risk if that happens.
Interesting post here from Shimoda and Tom Lee, much respected, also classmate, a Wharton guy. He said, volatility next 2 weeks as no winner will be declared. That kind of spooks me a little bit for him to think there's going to be a fight. And I also read a report that the Harris campaign has 5,000 attorneys waiting in the wings to litigate this thing. 5,000. And I remember the other side last time had this crazy guy, Giuliani, representing him, which is probably not a good team, him versus 5,000. So, but there is a little bit of good news, ladies and gentlemen. And this, a lot of money poured into stocks last week. This is from Eric Bochunas. U.S. equities had huge 1 week flows. So people are beginning to deploy capital, especially as rates come down. We'll talk about more of those later. But that's kind of quick update. Okay, over to charts. Boom.
Can I just add one thing? Because I saw a very interesting comment. Someone said that in the comments that these Polymarket and these betting sites are completely irrelevant.
Yes.
If the results are wrong on the Polymarket or whatever, why don't you go there then and place the opposing bet? Then you're going to get rich if you know that the result is wrong. So that would be my advice to the person who wrote that comment.
And so wise that you said that, because I want to talk about Polymarket as well. People think, oh, it's managed by whales, etc. But what do these whales have? They have lots of money and they're clever. They didn't get to being whales by being stupid. Second of all, betting markets, a lot of people that are new to this, they think it's new. They've been betting markets for elections for over 100 years. It's been around for a long time. Just right now, it happens to be a little bit crypto-based with Polymarket, etc. But it is not a new thing. And betting markets historically are far more precise than polls. And that's just 100 years of history. So that could all be wrong, but I don't think so. But excellent point, CTO.
So just an advice. So let's go to the charts. I have them up here. So it is actually interesting. We're looking at Sol. My strategy has been the same for the longest time. What is almost the whole of 2024. The key support in the Solana chart, in my opinion, is this line on the Sol to BTC chart. It filters out all the speculative noise, and that support is still holding. If we look at the Sol to USD chart, that is also interesting. This chart, if we can get it to zoom in here a little bit, this chart made a inverse head and shoulders that actually confirmed. Now it's retesting that neckline. So this could be an interesting point if you've been sidelined in Solana and think that altcoins could have a revival here. So I think that's a very interesting point. Then we talked about SUI. That one has changed a little bit, actually. It changed here. Which day was it? 21st of October or 22nd October. This is head and shoulders actually in the SUI to BTC chart. So this one doesn't look as good. And it kind of retesting that breakdown from the wrong side, from the underside here. So the momentum is a little bit lost in the SUI project. Of course, it looks different if we look at the USD chart, because then we get the pull or the push up from the positive BTC price action, but it's kind of little bit danger here as well, because if this one breaks down here, we have a head and shoulders of sorts, though it's a bit ugly also on the SUI chart. So I think that Solana looks better here than SUI if we just look at the technicals.
And Mando, that top, that's confluent with that $400 million VC sale or FUD or whatever that story was, correct?
Yeah, Marty's not here, so we can talk bad things about SUI now.
And there's another fun chart too.
There's unlocks for sure.
This is all over SUI over the last 12 months, completely flat. So you could have held either over the last year and you'd be no better off. So that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair too. Like SUI had brief periods of massive outperformance. It's got unlocks. I think Solana's actually got some unlocks this month as well, though. So unlocks are obviously a thing about crypto. SUI does have some very aggressive ones. I'm trying to think, because I am bullish on altcoins if Trump gets in, and that's what I think is going to happen. Although you can play both sides, but I'm just trying to debate what's like the best altcoin to buy. I think some of the DeFi coins and some of these L1s are probably the ones that outperform if that happens. Particularly some of the ones that the SEC has called securities in the past, things like Solana or Phantom even, or Avalanche could have a move. Like some of these ones that have really been badly hurt, and still see a decent amount of activity, but are still being labeled as securities. I think could see some of the biggest jumps, maybe even break out those sort of downtrends.
Yeah, I'm in token unlocks here. I don't see any Solana unlocks. There's always a microscopic one, like 0.01% or something, but there's nothing big coming that I see over the next 2 weeks.
I think it was for the month of November. The month of November, we got $2.5 billion of unlocks I saw today. So, and it's a range of different things. I thought I saw Solana on that list. And
I mean, if it turns around, it could even be. Now, there is no positive person left for Ethereum. Like even Vitalik is like answering angrily on Twitter. It's like on X. So, it could be the peak depression. There is no hope. Everyone has given up and so on and so forth. But then if regulation turns around, it remains the biggest project, the obvious number 2 after Bitcoin from a regulatory perspective and so on. So, but there is no signs of a turnaround in this chart, as we've said for a long time on this show. We cannot see it in the chart. There is no signs of a turnaround here.
And in terms of other metrics like fees and users and transactions and DEX volume, Solana is smoking all other chains combined right now.
Yeah.
So when people talk about, Phantom, whatever, coming back from the dead, or Avalanche, it's probably not going to happen. And that's just the reality.
No, I think it was 120 million active users on Solana last month, the highest ever. Absolutely smashed it. I did find where I looked at it. So large token cliff unlocks, we had Solana. They have 85 million linear unlocks.
Okay. So that's 0.11%. I only get concerned when it's over like 1/3% or 0.5%.
It's not big. It's not big, but it's on there. But we do have a huge amount of unlocks this month for sure. Right. So after the election, we're going to go straight into the Fed as well. There is it looks like basically 100% chance that we're going to see a 25 bip cut. We saw a weaker jobs market print on Friday. Larry Fink, though, thinks that'll be it. One and done. Maybe we should bring up the yields chart CTO as well, because
I got him here.
It's been so that's it. I think it's actually risen. You're right. Yeah, right.
It's guaranteed 25 basis points in a few days, and then pretty much guaranteed another 25 basis point cut 4 weeks later. So 2 cuts are coming, and this CME indicator is always very accurate. But the wild card though is the election. So one candidate has vowed to fire Jerome Powell, and put somebody else in place. And of course,
he can't fire Jerome Powell.
I know, but he says silly things sometimes. We all know that. But there would be pressure on Jerome Powell to bring rates down, because a big part of what the campaigns are talking about is making things affordable again. And for that to happen, rates need to come down in a big way. So this is going to be a big part of it. So I think those 2 rates are coming. What Fink said, I think, is kind of interesting. But remember, Fink is kind of a quasi-bank. Banks like high rates. That's how they make more money. So we'll see.
Yeah, it feels as though we had a weaker jobs figure on Friday, but most people those like big commentators have been saying rates aren't going to come down as quick as you think they are. Admittedly, they do have some skin in the game there. Like JP Morgan's been saying it, Fink's been saying it. They had traders like Paul Tudor Jones, like we already said on here, came out and basically said inflation is going to be higher for longer. Bond yields as well, they had gone as high as about 4.3% on the 10-year, although I think they've dropped since. But
the labor report took them down, because now they know 2 rate cuts are coming. But the labor market is shockingly bad right now for a number of reasons. Normally, labor market improves coming into the holiday season. Like in the US, you get Thanksgiving and Christmas and stores staff up. They're not doing that this time around. And then manufacturing is also toast. Absolutely abysmal manufacturing numbers. The economy is in an extremely bad situation coming into the election. Extremely bad. And there's very few people that don't feel how bad it is.
It's AI. I don't think it's going to change.
I had a contractor come to the house yesterday. He said he's never seen it so bad. There was nobody using his services. And he's a guy who you couldn't reach on the phone for 3 months. And now you can call him on a Sunday morning to fix something. He's there. So it is, the economy is really bad. That's a fact of life.
Yeah, and AI is for sure adding to this. I mean, I'm doing it. There must be, like, if you look at yourself, anyone who's hiring people in an office job here in the comments, are you feeling it? Or you start feeling that maybe I don't need to hire that person, actually. I can just use AI to do it instead. So I'm sure that must be an effect as well. The economy is feeling the pressure. And if I can show the yield chart, Mando, as you of course know already, it has moved up a lot. In fact, yields have moved up into the previous support, which is now perhaps then resistance. But yeah, everyone thought that this was on the way down. Everyone, including myself. This started looking like yields were on the way to look like this. It didn't happen. It reclaimed the support. It has moved up a lot. So the market's opinion, this is a 2-year yield. So this is like what will happen over the next 2 years. The market has a radically different opinion now than just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we have a request to bring up Nosana CTO. Somebody asked NOS USD.
I can bring it up as well.
Roaring today, I think.
Yeah, it shot up to $4 last week, and then it came back down to $3. Now it's up another 22%. It's very volatile. But again, this is like a crypto AI play.
Yeah, I think I had the BTC chart somewhere also, but absolutely, this is a very strong chart. We had a key level here at, what is it, at 240 probably? Is it 240? Actually, support broke down, resistance, and broke up. And trend is up, and it looks very promising. And I'm sure that this project has a lot of fans because it had this massive move in, what was it, the end of last year and beginning of this year. So we'll have a lot of fans for sure. But I don't know enough about it to comment on the fundamentals. But chart looks great.
Yeah, there's a key part here. Somebody just said, if you know, two people said, one is be prepared for what's coming down the future, what I've been warning about since 2022. And also be exposed to the two key narratives that are both crypto and AI. Very, very important, I believe. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, we had a very AI focused show. I think last week I was going to bring up some of the stuff that has happened this week, but the two main things I saw this week were, number one, you had the first swaps being done by AI agents. There's actually an AI called AI16Z. So
can you blow that up a little bit? Is that like Andreessen Horowitz play on terms? Yeah,
it's a play on them. But one of the AI agents completed its own autonomous token swaps off testnet this weekend. So last week we had them sending out funds. Now they are doing swaps. And then separately, we had Virtual's protocol. I don't know if you can see this, but they launched a launch pad now for AI agents. 244 were launched within 24 hours. Two interesting projects there, AI16Z and Virtual's. Both kind of, one of them's more about AI agents. One of them's more like a Memecoin style play. But then you had some of the bigger coins like Goatsy bouncing back, and a few of the other plays which have been big bouncing back. So yeah, I think it did die down a little bit over the course of the week, as in like from the euphoria, but it's definitely going to be one of the big underpinnings, I think, of crypto, I think, for the next few weeks. So we'll make sure we keep on touching base on that.
I put this together for you, actually, Mando. Let me see if I can add this. Can you talk to us about PumpFun and their AI play?
So this is this is actually not Pump.Fun. This is virtual protocol being like the Pump.Fun. So PumpFun is the meme coin launchpad. Virtual protocol is basically doing the same thing with AI agents. So you launch one of these coins alongside an AI agent, and then it will progressively get its own Twitter account, its ability to do on-chain transactions, like a chatbot feature, depending on like the market cap of it. So like it basically unlocks different features for the AI agent as it gets higher in market cap. And you've seen hundreds of these launch. Just the start of this. This is just the beginnings of people starting to experiment with that. There's going to be other ways to launch AI agents, but virtual protocol, which is on Base, has seemingly caught a lot of that attention, at least to start. Although there's lots of other places which are starting to pick up on it too.
Yeah,
and then
sorry. Yeah, I mean, if someone missed that show, when was it, last week or 2 weeks ago? It's so big. Like, imagine that you're actually giving these incredible AI models who have gotten so advanced over the past 1 year. You're actually giving them money. You're giving them like social media capability. They can go out and hire people, and they can do things. It is insane, and it's happening now, and it's incredible that we get to experience this. Actually, it will have so big impact, and it is really this fuse of all these technologies that's happening at the same time: AI, blockchain, crypto, and a number of other technologies. And it will shock everyone, I think, how powerful it gets, how quickly it goes. And it's fascinating, and there will be enormous financial gain opportunities in this space for sure if it doesn't get shut down.
Yeah. And maybe talk to this final topic, Mando, memes. Some of them, I remember looking at Bonk a while back, and they had like 80 different DeFi integrations. They had DEXs, they had liquidity provisions, staking and yield farming, collateralized loans. I mean, NFT stuff, crazy evolution in the whole meme coin space. I know people think it's a joke. I thought it was a joke for the longest time. But maybe talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so there's two different things I think to talk about here. Is number one, when we spoke about how coins can be created these days, they often have to start with no utility, and then the utility is added later. So some of these bigger meme coins, they start to become ecosystems in themselves. Like probably the biggest one of these is like SHIB. It has its own chain, its whole DeFi landscape, games. It's a big old beast of a coin these days, and that's the case for a lot of different coins. As they get bigger and bigger, they start to integrate more and more. Or you have things even that launch and then they adopt utility very, very quickly to do different things. So yeah, meme coins has become a bigger trend, and also just the number of different things happening on there each week. There's just one thing I've noticed is that the speed at which people just move to new metas each week in these meme coins is kind of crazy. Like you had AI, you had before that, then you had something around that squirrel that was killed over the weekend, which Elon kept on tweeting about. That became a thing.
Peanut.
Everything around that as well. Like there'll be thousands of coins. In fact, I'll share my screen because there's someone that I follow in the space. If you are interested in kind of degening all day, where was it? Ooh, this guy, Melometrics does. This is just one day of recap. Like how many different coins and what has been going on. So we have Elon's pets, justice for peanut, killed animals, pump stuff. It's just election meta. Like there is thousands of different things happening, and these are completely gambles. Most of them go to zero, but this is what's happening on chain. So it's kind of crazy to see how much happens, and then often they can evolve into like more serious things with time. But you get thousands of coins each day going to like 10 to 100 million plus sometimes. Like that one coin about that squirrel that got killed went to 130 million in a day. Went to 130 million dollars in a day. And then it went promptly to 30 million.
So you just answered the question why retail hasn't gone into Bitcoin. Yeah,
of course. I mean, when you tell your friends, what do they ask you? You say, what should I buy to make money? They don't ask you. They're not asking for your thesis on the collapse of Western civilization. They want to know what they can gamble on to make money over the next week. And meme coins have have scratched the itch, let's say, for a lot of people, and that's what's been the majority of the onboarding. Like I just showed you, there's like the amount of different things happening each day in that space is kind of crazy. It's just tokenized culture at this stage.
Yeah.
Right, I think that's it, lads. I didn't know if you want to touch upon Tesla. I think you kind of spoke about that.
I saw one comment. I saw one comment that is potentially the best comment of the day, because of course it's boring. We all were hoping for the breakout, horizontal breakout. It kind of reverted. We're back here. We've been here like the whole year, almost chugging along. Big J here wrote, crypto investing is like holiday parties. There are only a couple of good ones every year. The rest of the year is boring. And I think that's really the thing here. It's been kind of a boring year. Price has consolidated, more consolidation. Nothing has really happened. The only action has been in the meme coins, and a lot of people have not really followed it or been in the meme coin so much, because it's kind of work intensive, it's fast, it's a little bit difficult. Yeah. And I think, but then suddenly it happens. Suddenly comes the holiday party of the year, and then you better be there.
Yeah, it's funny. What you said, though, is very true, CTO. And in traditional markets, it's the exact same thing. There's 10 days a year that matter. If you're not on the bus for those 10 days, you miss out on 80 to 90% of the gains. So we'll see if we get one of those 10 days in 2 days. That'll be the thing we got to look for. So
yeah, I think that genuinely. Sorry, my camera's going, but I think we have. I'm not even too sure if Trump coming in is going to be able to enact all the stuff that people get really bullish about for crypto. But I think there's a window here ahead of the inauguration, either side, where I think you could get a left translated cycle. I think things could really, really rally. So I would be aware of that. Like, don't sell everything. I think now is the time. Q4 is where you see the parabola, I think.
Yeah. And it's funny because normally on Mondays we get a spike. Today we're down about $300 since we started on Bitcoin. So
yeah, well, it's surprising as well because Trump's odds have actually risen over the course of the day. But I just think you're going to see volatility. That's what you're going to see, and it's not going to go that far down. Like people all go that far up ahead of this election.
Yeah, markets hate uncertainty, and this is a huge chunk of uncertainty that hopefully will be resolved soon. So,
all right, guys. Well, I think next week we may be doing a different day, right? This may be a Tuesday session.
Move to Tuesday, yes.
So 1 week, we'll have an election special. A week on, Marty will be back. Should be a great episode, I think. So, good luck for the next week, everyone. I know it's going to be very, very volatile. Maybe actually just do nothing. Sit in your hands. Don't look at charts. Come back with us next Tuesday and see where we all are. Hopefully, it'll be a pleasant surprise. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, James. Obviously, you can follow James on YouTube and on X. CTO, similarly, on YouTube and X. And I'm on X and at mandominutes.com for the newsletter. So thanks again. We will see you again next week.
Awesome show. Thanks, guys. Thanks everybody, for coming.
Bye.
Bye.